Good evening. The government is now coming up with a level of charges for households in the solid waste disposal scheme. There are also proposals on how the charges will be calculated, for example, for those living in village houses versus residents of high-rise buildings. Rani Samtani has more details.
What the public is most concerned about is how much they'll have to pay. In the first round of the consultation of the scheme, the government confirmed that a majority of people do support waste charges. In the next phase, the government will offer proposals on just what the charges will be. For example, a 3-member family that dumps 2.61 kilos of rubbish each day will have to pay from about $30 to $60 or more per month. And the more solid waste it needs to dispose of, the more it has to pay. As to how the garbage levy is to be calculated, the consultation document says it could be charged by weight or volume. Then there are also proposals on whether to follow in Taiwan's footsteps of calculating the levy based on the waste generated per household. Or it could be based on the average amount of the entire building, which could work better for residential high-rises common in Hong Kong. Or there could be a mixed scheme featuring both approaches. And the public would be asked if they want the charges to be implemented in one go or in phases. Other details involve possible exemptions for low-income households and how to prevent people from illegal dumping. While many have voiced support for the tax, critics are demanding the government focus on other waste reduction means, such as recycling instead. But the Environment Bureau has maintained that Hong Kong's massive waste problem can only be managed by focusing on a series of measures, and that includes a household waste tax. Rani Samtani, TVB News.
A top central government official in Hong Kong today stepped up the attack on the Occupy Central movement. And as Evelina Leung reports, debate also rages on the nomination of candidates in the 2017 chief executive election.
In a newspaper article today, Hao Tie-chuan, publicity director of the central government's liaison office, offered his views on the Occupy Central movement, which aims to push for universal suffrage in Hong Kong. Hao said there must be progressive progress in a civil disobedience campaign. The first step is to go through the legal proceedings and lawful assemblies. After exhausting the illegal options, it involves illegal means to express discontent, but it cannot target other people in society. Hao hit out at the movement, saying it chooses to skip the legal means, which would affect local businesses and tourism, among other things. He also said should the campaign get a go-ahead next year, it would happen again and lead to future unrest.
Joseph Deng of the Alliance for True Democracy hit back at the Beijing officials' comments, saying they would not even have to consider the Occupy Central movement if the government comes up with a reasonable constitutional reform proposal.
Occupy Central organizer Benny Tai, meanwhile, said they are using peaceful means to fight for universal suffrage right now, and the movement is only their last resort. He added those taking part would not create chaos or unrest. Chief Secretary for Administration Carrie Lam also weighed in. She says she is looking forward to electing the chief executive in 2017 through universal suffrage, but she said everything must be done lawfully. Also in the spotlight today, the nomination of candidates in the 2017 CE election. Maria Tam of the Basic Law Committee says she's against allowing all eligible voters to nominate CE candidates.
The other thing is the technical issue, a procedural issue involved. I think there may be some difficulty asking whoever's prepared to sign the nomination sheet to give you his ID card or address and things like that, which will sort of reduce the credibility of such an exercise.
She says the nomination process is already in place and she does not see changes to it. Evelina Leung, TVB News.
And while meeting Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Washington, the U.S. Secretary of State agreed to disagree with China over the crisis in Syria. Wang reiterated the need for political talks instead of launching military strikes on Syria. While John Kerry admitted they disagree sharply over the handling of Syria's chemical weapons, he urged Beijing to help the UN Security Council resolve the issue. On North Korea, Kerry said China plays a special role in achieving their shared goal, which is to bring about a peaceful denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
The U.S. has welcomed comments by Iranian President Hassan Rouhani that his government would never develop nuclear weapons. The Obama administration also says leaders of the two countries may meet in New York next week if Tehran is indeed serious about giving up its nuclear program.
Rouhani's comments have been very positive, but everything needs to be put to the test. We'll see where we go. And at the right moment, I think the White House and the State Department will make clear where we're heading.
Actions are more important than words. And one of the reasons why we're seeing this change in rhetoric, we believe, is because, or we know, is because of the international consensus that has been established with the President's leadership behind the proposition that Iran must give up its nuclear weapons program. And that consensus has been backed with the most severe sanctions regime in history. And that sanctions regime has inflicted enormous harm on the Iranian economy.
Welcome back. American banking giant J.P. Morgan Chase has agreed to pay almost $1 billion in fines for failing to oversee risky trading strategies that led to huge losses last year, perhaps even more damaging to the bank's reputation than the staggering fine. The bank admitted wrongdoing. Alan Booknia reports.
The combined $920 million in fines is one of the largest ever levied against a financial institution. Regulators from the United States and Britain said J.P. Morgan's weak oversight allowed traders in its London office to assign inflated values to transactions and cover up losses that eventually ballooned to $6.2 billion in April 2012. The director of enforcement at Britain's financial regulator said the bank had measures in place that were inadequate and ineffective.
Actually, the risk grew significantly over time, and the knowledge of the company about the size and scale of those risks was not keeping up with it. And one of the issues around the way in which the firm undertook its own investigation was that it had not realized the scale of the risk it was facing.
2 senior managers and 1 trader in the bank's London office were fired. 2 are facing criminal charges. The bank could also be facing lawsuits from investors who lost money.
Clearly, it's a big hit to the bottom line. They have reserved certain amounts of this already, and they expect that their legal expenses beyond reserves could be as high as $7.5 billion going forward. So it's a little bit higher than we had expected.
The scandal was initially called a tempest in a teapot by J.P. Morgan's chief executive, Jamie Dimon, who later admitted to Congress the bank failed in its oversight.
Jamie Dimon has made it clear that they are trying to rebuild from this. As far as did he have anything to do with this, I think, if anything, it was more of a failure of oversight, his lieutenants.
The huge loss at J.P. Morgan raised more concerns about continued risk-taking by Wall Street banks and questions of whether the financial industry had learned the lessons of the 2008 meltdown. Alan Booknia, TVB News.
And back locally, Hong Kong's first ever Cruise Holiday Expo kicked off today at the Kai Tak Cruise Terminal. The 3-day event will bring several international cruise line operators here in an attempt to promote Hong Kong as an international hub for the industry. Joel De Silva reports.
With rainwater leaking through the roof and passengers struggling to find transportation, it was a rough start for the $8.2 billion Kai Tak ferry terminal last June. Still, the government is satisfied and optimistic. At the opening of the city's first Cruise Holiday Expo, the Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development emphasized that the cruise business is just starting to pick up.
I'm quite happy to announce that from October onward into the end of next year, we will have 35 cruises coming through Hong Kong, and this is currently the status.
And according to the director of the consortium running Kai Tak, a recent move from the central government allowing mainland passengers setting off from Hong Kong to Taiwan to travel onwards to Japan and South Korea is prompting interest among international operators.
They're quite interested both in the new policy and the itineraries they can put together. And they're also interested in other big infrastructure projects in Hong Kong, like the high-speed rail, which means that the addressable source market for them in southern China will become that much bigger.
About 30 local travel agents are also at the expo, attempting to convert Hong Kongers to cruise tourism and to dispel the myth that it's only for the rich. Besides special offers and select cruise packages from travel agents, visitors to Hong Kong's first cruise holiday expo can also attend seminars with tips from travel experts and win lucky draw prizes. Joel De Silva, TVB News.
A beach in Tsuen Wan has reopened for the first time in nearly 2 decades. This follows government efforts to improve the water quality at Anglers Beach. Officials believe beaches in the area are now in better condition than before, but as Kirti Nadwani reports, beachgoers still have complaints.
Anglers Beach reopened today in time for the long holiday weekend. Swimmers noticed a significant improvement in the water quality here, but complained the beach was still filthy. This beachgoer said the water quality is fair, but that would be better if there's no garbage around. Others do find the beach's facilities to be better, safer, and more family-friendly. This woman pointed out that lifeguard services are available once again. The Leisure and Cultural Services Department says new changing rooms have been built and storerooms and the barbecue site were renovated. And the department is deploying staff to clean up the garbage here. Anglers Beach was among 7 beaches in Tsuen Wan shut down since the mid-1990s because of poor water quality. After years of sewerage improvement works carried out by the government, 4 of them, Lido Beach, Kasam Beach, Approach Beach, and Hoi Mei Wan Beach, were reopened to the public earlier. The other 2, Ting Kau Beach and Gemini beaches, are expected to be reopened next summer. Kirti Nadwani, TVB News.
Right, that's the news for tonight. Thanks for watching.
Good night.